Beloved, on this evening, I come to you with the same concerns that I'm sure all of you have. What we have witnessed in the last day or so has certainly challenged us. We have seen things that we perhaps never thought we would see in a democracy. If this were some third world country, some dictator, some regime that is known for this type of coup or insurrection, we would not be surprised. We have, in some sense, been spoiled in that we are used to this stuff happening on some distant land far beyond the shores of the United States of America. And we appreciate all of those, current and past, who have served this country so that we might enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. But we must also remember that freedom is never free. It comes at a price, and we must realize that price must continually be paid. That price comes through sacrifice, it comes through tears, it comes through service, it comes through citizenship, but it also comes as a result of us as believers praying for this nation and praying for this world. I thought long and hard today on what I would say to you on this evening. I recognize that sometimes we just need to hear a word. I did not feel inclined to share a historical account on this evening in making an application to any particular scripture point for this evening. I do want to remind you of some things that are necessary to get us through these difficult times, as I am sure that some are dealing with anxiety and uneasiness that are rightfully experienced as a result of seeing the things that we have seen. I want to remind us, number one, of the importance of anchoring our faith in God. It is so unfortunate that we have seen what we've seen, but we cannot be surprised when we see such behavior in a fallen creation. Though we have not been accustomed to these types of things in our country, we must recognize that our country does not exclude itself from the realities of a sin-filled world. And because this country is a part of this world, sin does not discriminate and it is not geographically hindered or helped in one area versus another. Sin is inclusive of all of mankind, and wherever we go, we're going to see the effects of living in a fallen creation. But we must learn to anchor our faith in God and not in even our government, though we should respect our government. We must never forget who our God is. And if we understand that God is still in charge, He's still in control, then we must not fret. An example that I have used in preaching before is having been on a flight coming back from Atlanta to Chicago in the midst of a very turbulent flight, a storm that was quite torrential, the plane rocking back and forth, and thunder seems to have hit the plane every few seconds. And the Chicago Bulls were playing basketball, and every 5 minutes, the pilot was giving an update on the score. And I remember being baffled as to why the pilot felt the need to give us the score of the game. Was that a means of getting our minds off of the storm? Was that because he felt that the Bulls game was that important? And I never forgot that, although that has been some years ago, And I've come to a conclusion that I want to share with you if you've not heard me share this before. I have concluded that the pilot was not worried about the storm. And as long as the pilot's not worried, the passengers need not worry. And if God is the pilot of your life, if he's not worried, there's no need for us to be worried. Now, if you have a bumper sticker that says God is your co-pilot, then you're in the wrong seat, because you need to let God be the pilot. You go on to the back and take your comfort and your ease by trusting in him. We must also find in these times that though it is difficult, as we see hatred, we see violence, that we have to be bold examples of Christian virtues. Light must shine its brightest when man is at his darkest. When sin looms like a dark cloud, we have to break through that darkness with a light that says we will not give in, we will not compromise our Christian character or integrity, but that we will be what God has called us to be. We must remember not to define ourselves as Democrats or Republicans or conservatives or independents or libertarians or any such thing. We need to define ourselves as Christians. The Bible teaches, Philippians 3:20, that our citizenship is in heaven. And the unfortunate reason that so many people are so passionate about these elections is because they define themselves first as an American or first as a particular citizen in a particular party. But we must understand that our citizenship is in heaven. We are simply on a sojourn or passing through this area. We must also remember, as hard as it may be in these difficult faces of evil that we see flashed across our screens, that Matthew 5:44 teaches us to love our enemies. There is a difference between liking what people do and loving them for the fact that God thought enough of them to create them and that God seeks the salvation of their souls. Loving our enemies does not mean that we like their actions, but we certainly want to never bow to evil by filling our hearts with hatred. We must remember to pray for our government. We must remember to pray for kings and all in authority, according to 1 Timothy 2, verses 1 and 2. And whichever side you may take politically, make sure to not only pray for the interests of those who share your political ideology, but we must pray for those who oppose us and who differ in our political ideologies, because again, we are first Christians and we must exemplify Christian virtue. Last, I'd like to remind us as we talk about faces of evil, not to be consumed with any person or person's face that we see as being culprits or perpetrators of evil. We must recognize that those faces are only the pawns used by Satan himself. John 10 and verse 10 teaches us that Satan, the enemy, he seeks to kill, to steal, and to destroy. And we must recognize that the real culprit, the real insurrectionist, the real evil person is Satan himself. And so we must be God's agents who advance his kingdom agenda. We must be God's people who proclaim him. And that even if people don't see God in our government, if they don't see God in the news, on the jobs, or any public places by way of what others are doing, that some kind of way we can show God by how we carry ourselves and conduct ourselves. So as opposed to fretting during this time, anchor your faith. And as opposed to conversing with others and arguing political points, let's promote Jesus and not a political party. This has been A Few Minutes with the Minister. We hope that you are encouraged in these otherwise discouraging times.